The NBA postseason is just a month away, but it's never too early to look towards the offseason because there are a lot of solid free agents out there in the 2024 NBA free agent class, and there's already rumors swirling around some of the top guys, so we're going to break those down in today's show. I'm Nic Rohloff of NBA Now, and the guy we're going to be talking about today, Paul George, because the latest rumors surrounding PG-13 are a pair of teams in the Eastern Conference already monitoring his situation in LA and loading up to potentially add them to their roster. Paul George, one of the better players in the last decade, does have a player option, which we'll get to in just a bit. But if he becomes a free agent, oh boy, we can see some fireworks in early July. Before we break down the nuts and bolts of today's show, make sure you're following me on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it. I don't really care anymore. Because I'm going to cover the NBA on Twitter before I get to YouTube. So if anything major happens, I'll have it on my Twitter before we come and make a video on NBA Now. If you want to stay up to date on the latest surrounding the NBA in between videos, this is the best way to do so. Can we pick up 20 follows on today's video? That's the goal. At Nic_Rohloff. Links in the comments and description of today's video. All right, the latest rumors surrounding PG-13, this comes from The Athletic and John Hollinger, who said multiple Eastern Conference teams with cap space are monitoring the contract situation of Paul George to see if he becomes available and someone they could go out and sign in July. And Paul George should be someone every team should want to add if they can, because this is, like I said, one of the best players in the last decade, and he's actually having one of his better years with the Clippers this season, and it's not because of the numbers you see on screen. Well, there's one number in particular that I want to point out at the top of your screen, and that's the games played. Paul George has had an issue staying on the hardwood for the Clippers over the past 3 or 4 seasons ever since he joined Kawhi Leonard in LA. But this season, 61 games played. He's been on the court constantly for the Clippers. Maybe it's because of his workload going down with the addition of James Harden and Kawhi staying healthy as well. But all I know is that if Paul George is continuing to stay available and ready to play for whoever he is wearing the jersey for, he is going to be one of the most valuable players in the NBA. It is a perfect 2/3 at this point in his career. I don't think he could carry a team anymore, but he could absolutely be the Robin to someone's Batman, or he could be the best third option in the entire NBA. But even, let's just ask this. Is it possible that Paul George can be signed or available for teams to go after in free agency? Well, here's the contract situation. He's actually got 1 year left on his deal, but it is a player option, as you see. $48.7 million, in fact, that is a player option for the 2024-25 season. If he does opt into that player option and then it doesn't get extended, he will be an unrestricted free agent in 2025. But you look at the Paul George contract situation and you have to ask yourself, why would he opt out of that? And personally, I don't think he will. I think it would be a very dumb business and basketball decision for Paul George to opt out of that Los Angeles Clippers $48.7 million player option. The only reason why I could potentially see him wanting out of LA and not opting into that 1 year deal is if he just simply doesn't like playing for the Clippers anymore. But why wouldn't he, right? You have Kawhi Leonard. You have James Harden there. Ty Lue's a pretty solid coach, and you have some solid role players on that roster as well. Terrence Mann is someone I really enjoy watching. I think he's a perfect 5 and a perfect glue piece for that team. But when you look at pure basketball, where else is he going to find a better option and a better chance to win than the Los Angeles Clippers? And it's not like he's getting duped on money. $48.7 million? Sure, maybe he get a 3 for $150 deal in free agency as he is turning 34, but I just don't see him getting too much more than that $48.7 million 1 year deal. So I expect him to opt in. But there are reports of teams monitoring him, and the 2 teams that have been linked thus far are the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, the report from Hollinger and the rumor surrounding PG is that the teams that are monitoring Paul George's situation are all from the Eastern Conference. These 2 come to mind, and these 2 have been linked. Before we dive into the fit for each of these 2 teams, just quickly off glance, if you had to pick a team for Paul George to leave the Los Angeles Clippers for in free agency, would you pick Orlando or would you pick Philly? If it's the Sixers, type PHI. If it's the Magic, type ORL. I'll say this. I think he will stay in LA, and I think that is the better chance for him to win, but it's hard denying how fun it would be to see Paul George join either of those two teams. Let's start with the Orlando Magic. You imagine pairing up Paul George with the young wings that Orlando has in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, one of the best 1-2 punches already. One of the best duos, and they're very, very young. This is Banchero's second year, Wagner's third year in the association, and they're already dominating, holding the Magic to the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference at the time of filming. Like, this Magic team can be dangerous, and the thing that they are missing the most, in my opinion, is an established center / a backcourt piece to complement the two wings, as Wagner's at the 3 and Banchero's at the 4. Paul George solves the backcourt situation because he could play pseudo point guard, but he could also be that 2 guy as well. That would be a very fun duo to add with Paul George, the veteran, to help them out. But you talk about the Sixers now. That would create a very, very good big 3. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George. Oh my, that is quite the big 3. And if they're able to keep some of those role players, and you trust Nick Nurse, who's been an NBA champion at head coach, to lead that team, George, Embiid, and Maxey big 3 would probably catapult them, at least on paper, to a top 2 team in the East. Like, I'm probably putting them above the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm probably putting them above the Cavs. It would only be right there with the Boston Celtics. That big 3 would be very, very intriguing. More to get to, including the other top guys that could be free agents in the 2024 NBA free agent pool. But first, today's NBA Now is made possible by PrizePicks, and they've got specials running for new and returning users alike for March Madness when you head over to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Football season may be over, but the action on the hardwood is just heating up, whether it's March Madness or the fight for the NBA playoff seeding. There's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. I made some picks for tonight and the March Madness games happening over the weekend as well. You can dive into women's, you can dive into the men's. Tonight's first 4 games in Dayton, Cody Williams, more than 8.5 points. He's going to be a lottery pick in June in the NBA draft. I also take the more than on Max Rice of Boise State of 12.5 points. But look at this special they're running for you right now. Caitlin Clark, the best scorer in Division I basketball history, men and women's alike. They're offering a special for you, more than half a point for her first game in the tournament on Saturday. You can take picks like this. March Madness has already kicked off, and you can pick more or less right now. PrizePicks is also giving you that free pick of Caitlin Clark matchup on Saturday that I just told you guys about. Just select more than on that half a point for Caitlin Clark and pair it with another winner for 3 times your money. PrizePicks is simple. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get started now if you haven't already at prizepicks.com/CLNS and get a first-time deposit match of $100. prizepicks.com/CLNS. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, I want to look at some of the other free agents now as we go into this 2024 NBA free agent class. And the #1 guy that could be a potential free agent that probably unseats Paul George as top dog in July is LeBron James from the Los Angeles Lakers. He's got a $51.4 million player option. I completely expect him to opt into that 1-year deal and stay with the Lakers. It seems like he is trying to time up this situation with his contract with his son, Bronny James. I don't expect Bronny to enter the NBA draft this season, so I expect LeBron to opt in, play with the Lakers next season, and then when Bronny is likely coming into the 2025 NBA draft after his second year at USC, that's when LeBron's a free agent and probably just signs with whatever team drafts Bronny James. #2 is a 76er, Tyrese Maxey, who has not been extended yet. He's a restricted free agent, which means he's not going anywhere because the Sixers can match any deal and another team offers him. Maxey coming off his first NBA All-Star selection, averaging 25-plus points a night for Philly. He is staying with the 76ers, but you like to have a dream that he could be out there and signed by another team. Pascal Siakam, the guy who was traded from Toronto to Indiana before the trade deadline, like way before, he is actually an unrestricted free agent. Now, the expectation is that he re-signs with Indiana in the offseason, but there is not anything done in stone, at least of now, which allows teams to make a run if they so choose to. Now, Siakam, I hate to be the party pooper here. I do expect Siakam to return with Tyrese Halliburton and keep that duo in Indiana, but it would be fun if Siakam was an unrestricted free agent. I'll tell you what, though. We are the #1 home for NBA content on YouTube, whether it be free agency rumors, NBA draft rumors. We did a mock draft last week. We'll do another mock draft after the March Madness tournament concludes. So hit that sub button. Join us as we are going to have you covered for everything surrounding the NBA on a 365-day basis. Number 4, and this is the one where I think maybe he does hit free agency. Jrue Holiday, the 4th option for the Boston Celtics, has a $39.4 million player option. And I don't know if Jrue Holiday is going to get more than $39.4 million per year, but he is a very solid player. He's currently that 4th option, I'd say, behind Kristaps, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown for Boston. If a team is out there that is craving that concrete 3rd guy on their team, take a look at the Orlando Magic, who have a lot of cap space. They need elite guard play to pair up with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. They could overpay for Jrue Holiday, and if Holiday gets the sense that that is his market in free agency, I could easily see him opting out of that $39.4 million player option and hitting the open market. Last free agent we'll talk about today, James Harden. He is an unrestricted free agent. So that's kind of where the Clippers have to make a choice, right? Well, they don't really get to choose on the Paul George situation because it is a player option. But if he does not opt in and he hits free agency, maybe they just elect to keep James Harden. Or if Paul George opts into the deal, maybe James Harden is not able to come back to the Los Angeles Clippers next season. Harden, a very divisive player in the NBA. He's very good, sometimes very bad. It all depends on how he does in the postseason. This will be a fascinating playoffs to watch for James Harden. He doesn't have to burden any big load on his shoulders this year because of Kawhi, PG being there. But if he chokes again, there's going to be a lot of question marks surrounding the good old-fashioned beard. Drop a name for me, though. Name your top 2024 NBA free agent. We talked about 6 potential guys today. Paul George, the 5 we just mentioned on screen. But if there's another free agent that you have in mind that wasn't talked about today, you can drop them down below or just pick one of the 6 that we talked about. That'll do it for today's video. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you do follow me on Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. Like I said, if you want NBA coverage in between our videos on NBA Now, the best place to go is my Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. So make sure you check us out over there and subscribe to the channel. It's a nice little 1-2 punch here. You get the funny analysis and quick analysis on my Twitter, and then you get a full-length explanation and video on Chat Sports. That's why you subscribe, and I'll see you at the next one.